All right, here we are, hour number 2 on a Tuesday. Chris Brown, Steve Tasker with you, and joined now by ESPN NFL analyst Dan Orlovsky, whose appearances on One Bills Live are presented by Caesars Sportsbook, an official mobile sports betting partner of the Buffalo Bills. And Dan, I want to give you an opportunity to amplify a message that you tweeted out about the Bills earlier today on X, talking about the team's culture. And I think a lot of fans sometimes have problems in identifying exactly what that is or what that looks like. And I thought you provided a couple of good examples from the Bills-Jaguars wild card game, one of which was, I think it was a 3rd and 12 with Daquan Jones, a defensive tackle, running 15 yards downfield to make a tackle on a scrambling Trevor Lawrence. Why did that resonate with you enough to post it?
Because you never know what play is going to be the game-winning, game-saving play. And I think a lot of us who cover the game, and also like ex-players, we get often consumed by the end of games. And because those plays are huge, right? They're obviously huge plays. But under the concept of it's a 60-minute game, and these games, in specific the playoff games, come down to 2 or 3, 4 plays, we just don't know when those plays actually happen. And so, when you watch the game play itself out and it becomes this 3-point game, and you sit there and as an ex-player, I'm so used to watching tape and just sitting there going, dude, just think about how big that play was or how big that play was. And, these pivotal kind of line of demarcation moments. And Daquan runs, like to your point, Chris, 15, 20 yards. It's 3rd and 12. He meets the safety, Cole Bishop, and all of a sudden it's 4th and 2. Well, Jacksonville decides to go for it, and Buffalo makes a stop. Well, it's 3 points. If Daquan ran at 80%, does it become 4th and 1? And do they get it? If he runs at 80%, does it become 4th and 4 or something and Jacksonville kicks it? Or later on in the game when, they've got strained down the sideline and Walker puts his left hand up and bats the ball down. Why left hand? Why not right hand? Well, left hand because it's a righty quarterback. Do you think that's the one play in that game that the defensive lineman puts his hands up when the quarterback's throwing downfield? You just don't. And if he doesn't do it, it's a completion that at least is going to give Jacksonville 3 points. Or when Cole falls off in coverage on the check down to ETN, and all of a sudden he makes a tackle, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's a tackle." That's a touchdown saving tackle,
yeah, right?
And that's also 3 or 4 minutes on the clock saving tackle. And so, I just think, we throw around this word culture, and we use it to magnify certain situations, and it's not accurate. And then we discredit it at times when the win doesn't come your way, and it's like that's a culture. Those are culture plays. Those are habit plays. Those are practice after practice after practice of coaches demanding stuff that win you football games. And I just think sometimes it's not X's and O's, but it's an effort thing and it's a habit thing.
We're at the time of year now, certainly the Bills and the Broncos, New England, and Houston, they're all getting ready for these divisional rounds. Same thing in the NFC, but we're in the coaching carousel.
Did you see this news?
Yeah, we just saw the news that Mike Tomlin stepped down as Pittsburgh Steelers. He stepped down as the Pittsburgh Steelers head coach, and that's a job that in the past he has called one of the most prestigious jobs in all of pro sports. And for those of us in the NFL, he's right? I mean, that's a franchise that is have hired 3 guys in over 50 years, and he's one of them, and he's won a Super Bowl, stepping down as head coach. What is your thoughts about this cycle and how rare it is to see a guy like Mike Tomlin after 19 years step away?
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the great coaches of all time, right? And so just this immense amount of respect. I was on teams that competed against Coach Tomlin for a long time. I think the crazy thing about this cycle, Stephen. I don't remember one that had this much proven, established coaching candidates, and then also proven, established blue blood organization with openings. I mean, you're talking about the New York Giants. You're talking about the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Just kind of these blue bloods, let alone, a Cleveland Browns that at least have historical element to them, a Raiders. So like these places that are just kind of woven into the fabric of the NFL as available job openings. And, God, for who knows what happens in Green Bay with Matt LaFleur. That could be another one. And you have coaches that have just been littered with coach of the year, Kevin Stefanski, 2-time, John Harbaugh, Super Bowl winner, Mike Tomlin, Super Bowl winner. So I don't remember a coaching cycle like this one.
Yeah, there's 9 open jobs now. That's way above average. It's crazy. I mean, it's more than a quarter of the league. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
Looking ahead, we saw the Bills' run game kind of pivot. They were not getting a lot of traction against the number 1 run defense of the Jaguars, and we saw Joe Brady pivot and essentially use Khalil Shakir as an extension of the run game with those quick hitters all afternoon, and it worked well for them. They stayed on schedule. Do you anticipate, and I'm going to throw this at you too, because we've seen Jackson Hawes kind of replace Alec Anderson. So instead of Jumbo, they've used Jackson more. They really like him as a blocker, and we understand why. I will remind you, last year in the wild card game, granted before Jackson Hawes is on this roster, they had Alec Anderson on the field for 22 snaps against the Broncos last year in the wild card game. They are now facing the number 2 run defense. Do you anticipate, because Alec Anderson only got 3 snaps last week, do you anticipate they could go big again, or do they ride Jackson Hawes, or hell, do they go with both of those guys and just go crazy with size and say, we're just going to try to mash you?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting in regards to, I'll start the answer with this, Chris. Is Ty Johnson available? I think that's a huge part of this game. You guys know that I have talked about for what feels like 2 months how important whoever plays Denver, you have to have your tight ends and your backs be the pass catching threats in that game. Unironically, here comes Buffalo, who that's the strength of their offense. And so I think if Ty Johnson plays, you're going to be in this mix if you're Buffalo, where you kind of want to have this grouping of Kincaid, Knox, Shakir, Johnson, and Cook. In whatever combinations, you want those guys on the field a ton. I think Jackson Hawes certainly plays his part. I don't know if Anderson does, because the way you want to attack this football team now, does Denver decide to not play as much man because they understand the matchup advantage for Buffalo and play a little bit more zone? If that's the case, then I do think you can see a little bit more of an Anderson on the field and some of their run game stuff. But I think that's going to be the chess game, is how healthy is Johnson? I know he was in the boot last week.
Right.
And then does Denver want to play zone, or do they want to play man?
Okay.
Yeah, and it will be interesting to see the chess match take place. These two coaches have met each other a number of times. One's an defensive head coach. The other's an offensive head coach. This is a Denver team, though, that has stacked up a ton of wins. I think, 13 of the last 14 games. And the only team to beat them was Jacksonville when Bo Nix turned it over there in Denver 3 weeks ago. So this game, talk a little bit about how you think this game could go. Certainly Josh took a pounding last week, but man, oh man, he proved why he's the best guy in the tournament. Is there enough around Buffalo to support him in that? And how does Bo Nix fit into that in their offense?
Yeah, so again, Steve, I think matchup-wise, if Buffalo's good enough with some of their tight ends and backs offensively, health-wise, I think they can have success. I really do offensively. I think the offensive line matches up well, and I think they can have success. This is who Denver is, so everybody kind of Buffalo fan perspective-wise. It's a very good defense. They put 5 defensive linemen across the field. they're all fantastic. Pro Bowl, all pro caliber players. Linebackers, really good players, active. Secondary, fantastic. Surtain is outstanding. Riley Moss is actually a pretty good player. He gets targeted a ton. Nickel's a good player. Hufanga is very physical when it comes to the safety spot. So they want to play man coverage, let those 5 pass rushers hunt. Surtain plays by himself. Teams that play well, they attack with tight ends and backs. I'll flip it, okay? This is who Denver is offensively. Left tackle, very good player. Garrett Bowles, one of the best left tackles in football. They're an offense that they're not extremely dynamic running the football. Both backs are a little bit more shiftier backs rather than in between the tackle backs. Harvey's kind of become a little bit of the go-to back, but they're good. Good tight ends. Sutton is a one-on-one. They want to throw him the one-on-one ball down the field. Mims is a let's get the ball in his hands type of player. They've got Franklin, who's they're like number 2 option, another big body receiver. They got big body receivers, Steve. There's been inconsistency in their offensive performance, and it's a tie to Bo Nix. Bo has been inconsistent throughout the season and very much so in the first 3 quarters of football games. He's been inconsistent with his accuracy. He's been inconsistent with his feet. He's been very frantic in the pocket. A lot of times it happens when you change the coverage against him. Show one, throw another. Fire zone after fire zone after fire zone. If I'm being honest, that's advantage Buffalo. That's kind of what they become on defense, okay? So there's another advantage. I think two things that'll matter a ton is this team loves to spit the ball to the perimeter. They, as an offense, they love to spit it to the perimeter in different ways. 4x1, 4x1, 4x1. Buffalo's going to have to play very good on the perimeter defense, both from leverage, angle, physicality. And the second thing is you can't let this young man have the ball with the chance to win it. He's the number 1 quarterback in the NFL in the 4th quarter this year when losing, both in touchdown and to interception and by QBR. One of the reasons he plays his best football when he's in this frantic state, or when he's in this sped up, no huddle, tempo state. He's big time athletic. He runs, he makes plays with his legs. So this should be a good matchup. I would imagine the ending is very similar to last week. One team's got the ball, the other team's got to make a play. And you know, if Buffalo's on defense, this Bo Nix plays his best football when it matters the most.
Last one from me, Dan. There is a chance that Ed Oliver could be back on the roster for this one. They opened his practice window for this week. He is chomping at the bit. Steve and I, our office is right off the field house. He looks like a caged bull over here working with the strength and conditioning staff. What kind of a force multiplier could he be for this defensive front, taking into account we got a 3-month layoff here, you know, conditioning, whatever it is. It's not the same as, you know, game shape number 1 and playing at altitude number 2. But what kind of a force multiplier do you think he could be for this defensive front?
Tremendous. You know, even if he's giving you 30 snaps and, you know, maybe 20 of those are on, you know, potential passing situations, a 2nd and long and 3rd and long. We've talked about it, how, you know, some of these passing moments, they've gotten into some of these fire zone pressures or these 3 linebacker pressures. And, you know, they put a lot of speed and athleticism. Ed still commands body. He still commands a commitment from an offensive perspective. And so not only the penetration and some of the run game defense stuff, but, you know, I thought the linebackers played at a really high level last week as well. So you know, Ed is a guy that you just are, as an offense, you have to account for on a consistent basis. And if you think about this, you know, potential pass rush situations with some of the 3 linebacker stuff, and then you take a Walker and an Oliver, a Jones and an Oliver, a Rousseau, the 3 linebackers, Bosa and an Oliver, you can get into some pretty creative stuff, you know? And so if he's able to just even give them a 1/3 snaps, you know, a quarter of the snaps of the game, that's it's significant. He's a big time player. This is a different defense when he's on the field.
Yeah, one of the reasons it went so well for the Bills last week in Jacksonville was the play of their secondary, which
We've been talking about it.
Right. It seems like something happened back there, right? I mean, they just feel like they're playing better, and they have gotten a little better and a little better. Certainly Trey White is further and further removed from his Achilles and his ACL from 2.5, 3 years ago. He's gotten better because of all the snaps he's had to take. He's very wily. Talk a little bit about the Bills' secondary and how you've seen them evolve a little bit.
I think we've talked about it, right? I'll go back to that Cincinnati game and saying, I know the numbers were what they were, but I thought the coverage was really good, and they just got beat by great throws by one of the great quarterbacks. And this secondary, one of the things that they're doing on a consistent basis, two things I would say, Steve, is they're changing pictures on quarterbacks. I often say there's two ways to truly impact quarterbacks. You speed them up or you slow them down. And Buffalo's not built to necessarily speed quarterbacks up with all their blitz people, but they're built to slow them down with who's the blitzer, who's not, where's the dropper, where's the pressure guy, and then what's the coverage doing. And then also, if you just look at a lot of their coverages, they are man underneath with help in some capacity over the top. So I do think it's allowing some of the corners, the Treys of the world, obviously the Benford, Tyrion, to sit on the hip. To sit on the hip, that back hip. They know they got a little bit of help over the top. They're playing with the proper leverage. That's something that is such a detailed thing, and it may not make sense to a lot of people, but I'll go to the Tre'Davious White interception. His job is to play on the outside hip, because he has help on the inside. And just the detail that they're playing at and knowing where their help is a big deal. And obviously Cole's been fantastic. He's been fantastic, man, since he's become a starter for this football team. And I think it's playing secondary-wise, I think they're playing as good as anybody in playoffs.
Dan, thanks as always for the time. We appreciate it. Hopefully we're talking about another Bills victory next week. Thanks much.
Good luck, guys.